My favourite game of all time is Valve's story physics puzzler Portal 2. I've played the solo campaign 3 times over, gotten every achievement and 100%ed the co-op mode with 5 different people. I really do love this game. The Portal series has no shortage of clever puzzles, witty characters, internet memes, and of course fan games. When I say fan games, I'm not talking about this, or this, or this. I'm talking about full effort, standalone, quote unquote Portal 3s, which were developed by some very talented teams of people in the Portal community. And since Valve definitely aren't making Portal 3, I guess someone else had to. So I went to the effort of playing every Portal 2 fan game available on Steam. And today we're going to find out which ones were fun, which ones were shit, and which ones I might actually consider a true Portal 3. There will be full spoilers for every Portal fan game, so if that bothers you, please play the games first and then come back and hear what I have to say. Starting with...
What's that noise? Is that a gun?
Aperture Tag was the first full-length Portal fan game to release, and changes the portal gun that we're all used to instead to a paint gun, shooting both the orange speed paint and the blue jump paint from the mobility gel section of Portal 2. The paint can be fired onto any applicable surface, affecting the player when they walk on it or make contact. The lack of the ability to fire portals loses some of the charm of the original game, but Aperture Tag is definitely trying to do something different, so I won't critique it on that. Instead, portals are spawned by the game itself with the use of buttons and pads. The player is confined to certain areas where they may fire paint, with the use of these new paint fizzlers, which enable and disable the player's paint gun. This is where most of the difficulty in puzzle solving comes from in this game, learning to find a way around the game's limitations and get paint to where you need it to be. The player is accompanied by Nigel, whose voice acting is terrible, instructing the player in essentially being the Wheatley of this game. Despite being a personality core, he has no personality and is basically just a nuisance, killing the player at the end. Unless you go for an obscure second ending, which you would never find unless you Google it. You can close the incinerator, take an elevator up to the surface, only to find out you're still in a simulation and your whole life is a lie. There's no story progression and the game just ends right when you think new mechanics are about to be introduced. There is a part where you use the orange paint to go really fast across these half-pipe looking things, and Nigel will just start randomly saying cardinal directions after you've already completed the turn.
Are we starting already? Quick, left turn! 180, right turn! Right turn coming up! Impossible jump ahead!
Shooting the paint gun is a ton of fun. You'll know if you play Splatoon or the Unfinished Swan or the opposite of Power Washing Simulator. Messing up a clean environment with endless buckets of paint is really enjoyable, especially when you get instant feedback on your dopamine craving brain by having that paint fling you in the air or going supersonic speed when you touch it. Many puzzles in this game use box painting as a mechanic to purposefully paint the box with a certain colour to either make it slide across surfaces or bounce as soon as it's painted, often deactivating whatever it is currently activating, allowing the player to proceed. The puzzles in Aperture Tag are okay. Some of them do require clever thinking, but most of them are extremely easy and or buggy when a jump doesn't give you the height you need even when you do it correctly. There is a fun action sequence midway through the game, but it requires a lot of trial and error, and cut sight read is zero slack, as you need to be pretty lickety-split to paint the ground and walls before the game kills you. And I also think a puzzle game shouldn't require technical skill, but that's an argument for another time. The environment is lifeless. These pretend scenery walls don't feel lazy from the people at Aperture Science, they feel lazy from the game's developers, sticking a stock image on the walls instead of going to the effort to design a level. GLaDOS would never have let that slide. There are a few secret rooms for lore, I guess, but nobody cares because there is no story. The shooting of the paint is also slightly flawed, because your velocity as the player and the speed at which the paint shoots can wildly vary, meaning sometimes your paint will land fine, and other times you'll get a Mendoza moment, and the paint will take years to land on the surface you need it to, in order to save yourself from dying. There's also no way to clean your paint. You can only paint over it with a different colour, which is really annoying, and you just end up covering the entire level with eyesores of paint, making Aperture Science look like an ink blot test and end up bouncing you off the map anyway. Is Aperture Tag worth $5? No. Is Aperture Tag worth $0? Yeah. Is Aperture Tag worth $5 to a Portal mega fan? Possibly. I actually did enjoy this game, but it's completely unfair to the other great games in this video, which are free, and for a 3-hour game which has a lot of turn-offs, I think your money is better spent on a support DLC to one of the developers of a different Portal fan game. Or the Nigel trading card, I guess.
Let's do this! Fantastic!
Portal Stories Mel is set between the events of Portal and Portal 2, and has about 8 hours of gameplay. I beat it in less than 6 though, because I'm just Sigma like that. In the game, you play as the titular Mel and arrive by train to Aperture Science as a test subject. One of my biggest critiques about Portal Stories Mel is the complete lack of new mechanics and testing components in the game. The entire game uses the same gimmicks as the main Portal series, and attempts to expand on those said gimmicks, which it does achieve to a certain extent. The puzzles are well designed, using logical thinking rather than forward thinking, and at times can be real head scratchers, especially this one. Fuck this puzzle. An issue I did have is most of the puzzle's challenges came from a spam of buttons at the end of the level, requiring every box to be collected and brought to the end, without fucking up anything else allowing you to exit the room. This was a constant theme, this level literally having 3 buttons at the end to open the door. I feel like this just adds extra unnecessary challenge, but it wasn't a big issue since I told you I'm just Sigma. Portal Stories Meld picks up right where Portal 2 left off, as you start with the mobility gels and end with the rundown aperture section of the game with light bridges, making the entire experience feel cohesive and grounded in the Portal universe. The environments are luscious and well put together, and the game looks really nice, I have to say. The voice acting is actually good in this entry, especially the fake Cave Johnson, and it has a much more professional sound and feel than Aperture Tag. The game ends with a pretty nothing burger boss fight. It steals the turret assembly line sabotaging from Portal 2 and revamps it a bit, which is decently fun, though the final room of the game is rather anticlimactic and offers no real challenge. It's also extremely annoying to line up the turret to smash the memory banks, as this guy would not stop fucking falling over when I played it, but maybe that's a skill issue on my behalf. It wouldn't be the first time. 2 things I feel responsible to mention are, 1. Portal Stories Meld was released back in 2015, making it one of the first Portal fan games, and 2. It's free, which is honestly a steal and shows the love and passion that went into this game, as I would happily pay $9.99 for this mod. As a free mod you can't really complain, although people will still find a way. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C. Prism Studios, the developers of the mod, actually had to nerf some of the puzzles towards the end of the campaign because of complaints that they were too difficult. So I decided to try out the advanced mode with the pre-nerf puzzles, and my god, they were not lying. Now, I don't know how I feel about nerfing a puzzle game once you've already released it, but I guess listening to the community is good. And these games are meant to be fun, unlike the Portal 2 Workshop, which has the goofiest no-life nerd puzzles I've ever seen in my life. So all in all, I think that was a good decision. Difficulty doesn't inflate runtime, it just makes you lose your goddamn mind, and I think the spot where the puzzles are in now in the story mode are the best place for them to be. Portal Stories Meld is a great addition to the Portal universe, and a very cohesive and fleshed out entry. If you're after more Portal but want to keep the feeling of a Valve game with no new additions or gimmicks, I think this is your best choice for a Portal fan game. I highly recommend Portal Stories Meld, even if I am a decade late, and I'm sure I'll be coming back to replay it in the future when my urge for Portal 3 gets too strong again.
I mean, I could imagine a Carl Pilkington video game where he has to wander around the globe whinging about stuff. How many whinge points have you got?
Portal Reloaded changes up the formula completely, adding a 3rd portal to the game, the green time portal. The time portal can be shot with the middle mouse button, and entering it takes the player 20 years forward in time to a rundown, dilapidated version of the same test chamber in Aperture Science. This requires the player to think not just with portals, but in 4 dimensions, allowing for some incredibly brain-busting puzzles. And when I say they're hard, I truly mean they are hard. I completed all the games on this list without using a walkthrough, but for Portal Reloaded, I honestly had to screen share a couple times to my group chat to see if anyone else had any fucking idea how to solve the puzzles in this goddamn game. But the difficulty made for some truly aha moments, and you feel like an absolute genius when you finally solve the level. The future version of Aperture Science will often have testing elements which are fully broken, or fizzlers which have malfunctioned, meaning something you can do in the present may not be possible in the future, and vice versa. This makes you have to traverse through the 2 timelines to solve large rooms, and is a lot of fun once you fully understand the central mechanic. The level design looks great too, and it's really interesting to see the same point in space, just at a different point in time, and how nature has taken over the Aperture facility. Testing elements can be brought from the future into the present, such as a cube, allowing for duplication of cubes in the present and some very difficult puzzle solutions. Cubes, however, cannot be taken from the present to the future, as that would disrupt the laws of time travel. If it sounds confusing, that's because it is. The central mechanic makes for a whole new layer of lateral thinking and puzzle solving, such as bringing a future cube to the present to place it on a button, only to use the present cube to disrupt the timeline, making the future cube disappear and deactivating the button, solving the room. To be honest, you just have to play it for yourself, it really is that clever. There isn't too much story on offer here. The game makes out that you've been awoken into a forgotten testing track, and your only guidance is a robotic announcer voice telling you what to do. After working your way through 25 different puzzles, you finally reach a escape sequence, I guess, which is more of a long cutscene with 1 portal placement required, and the credits roll after you reach the surface and are greeted by headcrab zombies. Something I need to talk about in Portal Reloaded is the co-op mode. Me and my friend have basically played every single 2-player puzzle game on Steam, much to his dismay, and after begging him to join me in the co-op mode, we realise that it's kind of shit. One player has the standard portal device, and the other has the time portal, which was already kind of annoying, but to add to that, we basically just cheese half the puzzles in the campaign, either by stacking boxes and ignoring the actual puzzle, or doing weird momentum shenanigans to skip the level. I don't know how some of these made it past testing, because it seemed like every other chamber we were doing some weird shit, and I end up asking, surely that wasn't intended, right? With a weaker co-op mode but a fantastic solo campaign, Portal Reloaded is one of my favourites, and although fucking infuriating, was a great time, and made me feel super smart once I finally figured out the Back to the Future bullshit required to solve the puzzle. I think this game, if expanded on, would be a worthy gimmick for Portal 3 to have used, making it feel unique and fresh, but at the same time keeping the Portal vibes we all know and love. And with a price tag of free, I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't give this a try. Unless you're stupid, then maybe just watch Real Civil Engineer play it. Portal Revolution adds a variety of new testing elements to the game, including new laser cubes which can teleport laser beams anywhere in the chamber, and vents which transport cubes, gel, and even the player themselves. These new mechanics are essentially the backbone of Portal Revolution, breathing fresh air into the series and allowing for some unique puzzle solutions. The player is awoken by a personality core, shocker I know, and I think everyone who has played this game can agree, this guy has the most grating voice I have ever heard, and that is coming from me.
Or turrets. You might think that their pain is only simulated, but how is it different to yours or mine? They really don't deserve to be shredded, but don't worry. All their scrap will be recycled for production, and only surplus turrets get shredded.
This guy literally made me want to mute the game as I played because his voice was so fucking annoying, and it felt like I had this guy yapping in my ear for 5 hours. Despite that, this game probably had the best story of them all, with multiple characters and a post-credit scene. The reason for that is probably because it's a reskin of Portal 2's story with some different voices, and you even end up on the moon at the end again. The game has some really nice environments, and it's obvious the team went to a lot of effort to make the game its own thing, with the sole amount of custom assets. Some chambers in the game are seriously breathtaking, and just talking about it does the mod zero justice. Portal Revolution also has fantastic pacing, with lots of backstage areas and out-of-bounds sequences to give the player a break from solving puzzles. My critiques mostly lay with the puzzle design. Half the game you can only place one portal, which was annoying since I've obviously already played Portal 2 and know what I'm doing. Plus, many of the puzzles require a lot of backtracking, with the ending room taking 3 backtracks to complete. This was completely over the top, and I don't know what they were thinking here. The technical side of this mod is really impressive, but the actual puzzle design side could use a lot of work, and I feel like the team would have been better off finding outside help or employing people who make genuinely good Portal 2 workshop maps, because some of these chambers are just not it. What this game is much better at doing, however, is using its new mechanics in some really fun ways which promote lateral and outside the box thinking. I love the puzzles with the new laser cubes, and although the goal wasn't always exactly clear at times, due to the chambers having a lot of spam and lack of reusable testing elements, the solutions to these puzzles were enjoyable and had a good payoff. In Chapter 6 you have to use the comm gel to scale a large room, and this section of the game was absolutely hell. It went on for way too long, if you fall or shoot the wrong portal you often have to redo so much of your progress, and there weren't really any puzzles here, just climbing. It's also basically stolen from the original Portal 2, so make of that what you will. All that being said, I did really enjoy this mod, and you should absolutely give it a shot if you're a fan of Portal. It has a lot of downsides, but it's fantastic and very clearly made with a lot of love. Again, it's completely free, so you have nothing to lose other than your eardrums decaying listening to this guy speak. And there we go, that's all the Portal fan games available on Steam. I still itch for Portal 3 every day, but which one of these would I recommend you play, and would I class any of these games as a perfect substitute for Portal 3? Well, you should play Portal Revolution if you loved Portal 2, and want some moderately difficult puzzles with some new mechanics and gimmicks to learn. You should play Portal Reloaded if you enjoy using all the brain cells in your body to solve a single room, and if spending an hour on one chamber until you finally work it out sounds fun to you. Check out Portal Stories Mel if you want a classic experience and a mod with that Valve feeling. And buy Aperture Tag for $5 if you're a British YouTuber making a video on all the Portal fan games. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more Portal content, and let me know what you thought of this video as it's a bit different from my usual stuff. Goodbye.